Well, moving on to banking, because a solid number of changes have come in with banks essentially merging. 10 PSU banks have been merged, and well, this is something that I'm sure is going to impact a lot of you. Corporation Bank, Syndicate Bank, Indian Bank, Allahabad Bank, all of these have been merged into bigger anchor banks, and I'm sure you guys are customers of at least one, if not all of these, if not more than one of these banks. Plus, additionally, banks have started releasing how one can opt for the moratorium. All of them have literally announced it. PSU banks, of course, has announced it first. But the question is, will you have to pay extra if you opt for the moratorium? Let's get all of these questions answered. We have with us Anshuman Mishra of loanadda.com. Hi, Anshuman. Thanks for joining in. Well, I'm going to start off first with the bank merger bit. A lot of our viewers may be customers of these banks. Many PSU banks today are going to get consolidated with bigger banks. I'm sitting at home. I want to try and minimize my trips to the bank branches, etc. And now I get the news that, look, my bank is getting merged with a bigger bank. So currently, sitting at home, are there any steps that I need to take on an urgent basis, Anshuman?
Veena, yes.
Anshuman, I just wanted to ask you that if I'm one of these PSU banks customers, and I see that my bank is being merged, I obviously want to limit my trips outdoors. I want to stay at home to be safe. Are there any urgent, immediate steps that I need to take?
Veena, the first thing you need to do is that in this mega merger, earlier there were 27, now there are 12 banks. Now there is a merged bank and there's the super bank, as you can say. So what happens, that only thing you need to really consider is that the many questions that come, what happens in my bank transfer? So suppose you have an IFSC code. You need to ask your bank that whether your IFSC codes remain the same or whether it has changed. Because when there is a merger, the banks will decide whether the old IFSC code will remain or the new IFSC code will come in place of this merged bank. The second question which comes the most important is that what happens to my lockers? Will I have to go to the branch and rectify it? Now, I think the clarity for that is of course not there. But the banks are working now. So being part of essential services, you can go to the branch and check those things. But essentially, that there is no need to panic. These mergers are more of a balance sheet merger, and from a perspective which has happened since August. I think that's why the government did not extend it post of 1st of April, because everybody was expecting that this could be shifted by some time. So as of now, there's nothing much you have to do. Just sit back. You will not see any of your money going out of the bank or anything. Just ask your branch manager, or if you can go to the branch, which of course is not recommended now, you can just find out online what's happening with your account.
Okay, all right. Basic questions then, Anshuman, checkbooks, passbooks, credit cards, debit cards, all the physical paraphernalia that I have with respect to my bank. What happens to them? Let's say if I have to urgently issue a check to somebody today, will I be able to do so, Anshuman?
Yes, so I think the clarification for that has come to all the account holders that these existing checks and paraphernalia will be attended for some time now. So I think what had initially been told is that for 3 months you can still use it till the time there is any clarity. At least for this 1 month, you will get a very clear understanding that any of your checks or debit cards, everything will go for on. Sooner or later, you have to go to the bank and update your KYCs, which happens once in 6 months to once in a year. So once the lockdown finishes, then you can go to your branch and get your new debit card.
Anshuman, now of course coming to that whole topic with respect to the rate cuts, the 75 basis points rate cut, before I talk to you about the moratorium, very quickly, can I, as a customer of a bank, I have a home loan or maybe a car loan, can I expect my next EMI bill or interest bill to be lower?
See, if you are, like we answered this last time, if you are based on the RBI's, repo rate linked rate with every bank, which happened post of 1st of October, there it automatically goes down. So if your loan is going on at 8.25%, it goes down by 75 basis points immediately. So it's like 7.5. However, like as I said, that 90 to 95% of the loans are still on the bank's MCLR or internal benchmark rate. So the bank has 3 months to decide and to pass on that rate. So that will take time. So I don't think anybody's EMIs will immediately start shrinking by 75 basis points in the next 1 month or so, at least in the lockdown period.
Okay. All right. Anshuman, unfortunately, we'll not be able to take any more questions. We'll leave it at that. Thanks so much for joining us today on the show. Let me bring on board my colleague Ashna. She's joining us with some interesting news with respect to GST that she's picking up from her sources. Ashna?
Well, yes, the government has come out with the GST collection figures for the month of March, and the collection for this month has stood at barely 97,600 crore. Now, this is not only lower on year, but otherwise also it is extremely low. And even if we go by the government targets, even then the target for this month that was set by the revenue department was 1.25 lakh crores. So, of course, this collection, which has actually turned out, is much below the target of 1.25 lakh crore. And of course, we can also say that this is also the impact of a coronavirus outbreak that can be seen on the collections, because the economic output has been disrupted. The economy itself has gone for a toss because of it, which is also clearly reflecting in the GST collection figures for this month. And clearly, we can see it is now apparent that the government has missed its collection target. Even if we compare the whole year's data, even then it's very clear now that the government has missed the GST collection target that it has set. And now the government should also say that this data, which usually in the month of March is typically higher because during the year end people make more payments, it is much lower also because the imports from China have drastically reduced, because of which the IGST collection figure is comparatively low, which again is reflecting in the whole of the collection data. So yes, the coronavirus, which is having an impact on the economy domestically as well as globally, has now shown its impact on the GST collection figures as well, which now stand at only about 97,600 crore for the month of March. And it looks like the next financial year also is likely to bear the impact of it going forward.
All right, Ashna, thank you then for joining in with that story, a very interesting one at that. And obviously from all quarters, the government is going to feel the heat of sorts. Okay, here's something that we have for you on the ETF corner now, very interesting analysis. If you had invested in an exchange traded fund of, let's say, the Sensex, that would have invested directly in the Sensex, all the way since its inception, that's since 1979, you would be sitting on returns of 236 times. But if we remove the 50 best days, the returns come to just 6 times. However, if we remove the worst 50 days, the returns come to 8,800 times. The question over here is that don't time the market, because you're going to have good days and bad days. And this is something that even if you would have still gone through with, if you had just simply invested patiently in the Sensex and the ETF all the way since inception, you would have still sat on a decent return of 236 times. It's going to be extremely difficult. In fact, I would hazard a guess and say impossible to remove all the worst 50 days and get that 8,800 time return, because that's nearly impossible. So the key is basically be patient. There will be good times, there will be bad times as well. But I suppose, you just need to be patient and you just need to be disciplined. Okay. All right. Well, with that, we'll wrap it up on The Money Show. Thank you so much for watching.